Welcome everyone to the Jubilee reunion of Echad.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'd have your attention, please. Attention, Brenda. This is unplanned, but I'm going to introduce my friend, Chaim Roberts here, because he really is. Him and Jimmy Roberts are amazing individuals, and they've been here, they've been members of this community maybe longer than anyone in this room, and they've given so much over the years. They've done all kinds of things quietly that people don't know about. And I want to say that they put a beautiful ad in the journal. And the journal's the 50th anniversary of the show, and the journal's very significant. But unfortunately, due to some error in transfer, the text didn't make it into the printed journal. So I'm going to read it. They don't know that I have it. I'm going to read it so that we can hear what they had to say. Then I'm going to give it over to Jim, and he's going to talk to us. Okay? Sound like a plan?
Great plan.
Okay. This is from Jim and Jimmy Roberts. We wish to thank the many individuals and families that have contributed so much of their time, love and resources over the past 50 years to make Congregation Echad the warm, wonderful, nurturing community it has always been and still is today. Congregation Echad was a great place to raise kids to grow up Jewish. There was always so much Torah learning available at many levels. Our children were exposed to truly authentic models of living a Torah life. Even as young children, they were always accepted and loved by the community and from the rabbi on down. By joining this community, we have been so fortunate to be surrounded by many good, generous, inspirational people. Many of them were the rabbis of our shul or just rabbi members of the shul. Many of them were our friends. I would say all of them were their friends. And these relationships went beyond friendship and became family. They have touched our lives, made us better people, and enabled us to grow spiritually. Some have moved away. Unfortunately, some are no longer with us, but they will always stay in our hearts forever. So thank you to the ones who started this Shul 50 years ago, the ones who worked and continue to work so hard to grow it and to keep it on the path of Torah and Derech Eretz. We are eternally indebted to you all. Jim and Jimmy Roberts. Beautiful, beautiful.
I would just like to add a postscript to that, because there's been many years, 40 plus years we've been in this community, and always in the past, I always wrote the ad copy that went into the journals, and Jimmy would edit it, And then we would hash it back and forth, and we would eventually end up with something we both agreed on, and that would be it. This year, Jimmy wrote the ad right away, right off the bat. And there was no need for any editing. It was perfect right out of the box because she said exactly what I was thinking. And so I wanted to put that out there because it was something quite unusual. We've been here, as I said, for more than 40 years. This community has meant so much to us. It has had a profound influence on us. And not only us, but our children who are raised in this community. Our daughter Elisa, not Eliza as it says in the journal, but Elisa Brooks, not Roberts, but that's okay for Roberts because you know who she is. If you read what she wrote, you'll see that she reflected very much what her mother wrote. And if my son had written something, he'd been asked, I'm sure he would have come up with something very similar. All four of us feel a great debt of gratitude that we found this place, and it has had an enormous impact on our lives. I want to tell you that before the birth of my children, there were three things that had a really, truly profound impact on my life. The first was meeting Jimmy and eventually marrying her. The second was converting to Judaism, which completely changed the trajectory of my life. And the third was finding this community and becoming an active part in it. All three of these things sort of dovetail together in a symbiotic way, in a mutually beneficial way. It really is something that is very difficult to describe. But if any one of those ingredients have been missing, then I feel that my life and my children's life, my wife's life, would all be very different. So we're very thankful for this community. I want to say a few words about the history of the community. Pat Bergman is here tonight. I'm not sure where she is. She's out here somewhere. Pat was here from the very beginning, her and David. I know that they hooked up with Joe and Sheila Sonnenberg early on. I'm not familiar with those really early days because I didn't come for another 9 years or so. But I had the distinct pleasure of knowing David and the distinct pleasure of knowing Joe and Sheila Sonnenberg. And I want to tell you that Sheila and Pat were absolute forces of nature. I mean, they were just powerhouses. It's never easy to start anything from scratch. Anybody that's ever built a business knows this. To build a community, a religious community, it takes a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And it was an amazing thing that these two women did, because I'm not crediting the entire community of these two women, but they were a huge part of it. And I think it's honest to say that Pat and Sheila were the midwives that birthed Echad. You cannot talk about this community without speaking of Rav Abraham Chaim Lappin Zatzal. He was an extraordinary person. I have had to change my speech here because of this transition that we made here at the beginning. But I broke it up into groups of three because there's so much history here that it's impossible to put it into a short time frame. So I tried the speech many, many times, and it was just way too long. And so I went back and I imposed upon myself a restriction that I would do everything in groups of three. And that way I would have a mnemonic as a memory for my aging brain, but also it would keep me from rambling on, incessantly. The Rav Zatzal, the three things that stood out to me the most strongly, and this man was amazing, and there are some people in this community that still remember him, and they can tell you about some of the other amazing attributes that he had. But the first attribute that he had was he was the best public speaker I have ever met. He had a precise use of the language that was extraordinary. But the thing that made him really, really impressive was he could address an audience that could be comprised of people that knew virtually nothing and people that were Talmidei Chachamim, and he could make every person in the room think that he was talking directly to them, and that what he was saying was, that every person in the room could relate to on their level. I don't know how you could begin to develop that skill set. To me, it's an impossible thing. But he did it, and he's the only person that I've ever known that could do that. The second thing about the Rav Zatzal, and in terms of this speech, the most important thing, was he said that there is no Torah without Derek Eretz. He built this shul, this community, on a foundation of Derek Eretz, and he drilled it into us. I mean, sheer after sheer after sheer after sheer, he emphasized the importance of Derek Eretz in terms of a community. And I think that the reason that the community today is what it is because of this teaching, and because that he took the pains to meticulously build the community with this in mind. And the third thing about the Rav Zatzal was he was an extraordinary teacher. He used to give every morning, every chakras, what he called the 90-second shir. It was really like a 3 to 5 minute short drosh. Now, I don't know how many of you are public speakers, but I can tell you, if you've ever tried to do a 5-minute speech, you can understand just how difficult that is. It's a lot easier to do a 45-minute speech than it is to do a 5-minute speech. And he did it every day, every weekday, 6 days a week, let's say. And he did it beautifully, and it was always amazing. And in addition to that, he gave 2 Gemara Shirim for men on Thursdays. He gave a women's Musar Shir on Wednesdays. I mean, every day of the week he gave Shirim. And on Sunday he would give a Shir for us in the morning and then fly to LA and give Shirim to them in the afternoon, and on Monday and then fly back. The man was just a whirlwind of Torah teaching. So he was extraordinary, and he had a profound impact on this community, which I think really lives on today. And by the way, when he taught Derek Eretz, he taught it, but he also lived it. When he went to the bank, we found out after he died that the bank tellers were really upset that he had died, because he talked to them, he knew who their spouses were, he treated them with Derek Eretz. He treated everybody with Derek Eretz, and that's what you have to do if you're going to be a Torah Jew. After he died, it was difficult. We went through a really difficult period. We got into a very bad machlokas, and the community split, and it was very hard for a while. We had some serious financial problems, and it was not an easy time. But eventually, we got through those times, and we ended up stronger than we'd ever been before. But one of the reasons that we were able to get through those times is because of Rabbi Menachem Levine, who came along our way. And I want to talk about the 3 things that, for me, are the most pronounced things about Rabbi Levine, although there's many, many more than just these 3. The first thing was the Erev, and he and Ephraim Lindenbaum made this Erev happen. Both of them spent thousands and thousands of hours on this project. It took years. It was not an easy project at all. And I know at one point Ephraim came to me and said, listen, we could get this thing up. We could do this guerrilla era thing. We can rent a cherry picker, and we'll go out there and we'll string those wires and we'll get this thing up and running. But the rabbi wasn't having anything to do with that. And then it's actually a good thing that he wasn't, because maybe 6 or 7 months later, we actually got it up. And but not only that, the second thing was, and this was an extraordinary thing, the problem with the Eravim, all the Eravim in California had always come down to one bad actor, and that's Caltrans. And Caltrans was very difficult. I won't go into this. There's some great stories about this, by the way, and you might want to, you might want to ask somebody that knows about them sometime, because they're really amazing. But because of the way that Rabbi Levine approached it, Caltrans decided that they would write a procedure. They would document what was needed for anybody in California who wanted to build an Arab in the future, and they documented it. And what that means, that is huge, because what that means is that any organization that wants to build an Arab going forward has got it in black and white from Caltrans, and it's not going to take them years, Meretz Hashem. It's going to be very fast. And that is something that he accomplished largely on his own. And the third thing about Rabbi Levine, which I think is even more astounding, is he's a historian, as you know. But when he first came here, he knew more about the community. I was amazed, because he read all of the documentation. He knew the whole history of the community. Within 6 months, he knew the whole history better than I did. It was unbelievable. And but he also very quickly learned the whole history of all his congregants. He knew all the children's names, and that's no small task on the Echad community, because we have a new child every 30 seconds or so, it seems like nowadays. They're coming like crazy. And what did he do with this? Well, he learned all this information so that he could know exactly the best way to nudge. He could nudge, and he could get, how can I get this person to learn a little more Torah? How can I get this person to show up a little sooner for the davening? It's like, in my cases, he had to do more than nudge. He had to do a little swift kick to the tuchus now and then. But he managed to find a way to get it done, and I think that's his greatest achievement, really, because he moved this community forward in amazing ways, and we're very grateful to him for doing that. But I don't want to give the impression that that was only the Rebbeim that made this community happen, that built the community. Every pulpit rabbi knows that the real power behind the throne is the women. The women are what make the community hum. And it's no different in this community. In this community right now, there are 3 epicenters of Haknosis Cholim. There are 3 epicenters of Chesed. There's Leah and Jonathan K., which are our neighbors. There's Margarita and Manny Perez. And there's Rachel and Alex Sidorovsky. They're all amazing. And there's many more as well, but these are the 3 that to me stand out in a most amazing way. I'm looking down here at my good friend the Safrans, and when they were here, Shul and Robert Safran, they were an epicenter as well. And I want to tell you that our dear friend Linda of blessed memory, for many, many decades, was an absolute epicenter. And she was an extraordinary human being. Not only did she provide hospitality for so many, many people, but every Friday night, every single person, every not married person, in the synagogue was invited to her Shabbos table. And I'm certain that there were many, many shidduchs that took place as a result of that. So we're going to really miss Linda. She was, a dear, dear friend, and I think that the entire community will miss her greatly. But she was a great example of giving and doing. Now, I skipped a little bit at the beginning of this talk because we're running a little late, but I want to bring it back now. In terms of what is important in the community, I think there are three things. One is the obvious things. We have a shul that we can pray in. We have a Beis Midrash which we can learn in. We have a mikveh. We have all of the infrastructure that we need to be Torah Jews. And every community, this is you have to have that. But we have here in this community something else. We have what I would have to say is an extended family. We have a situation where if you have troubles, if you have problems, and everybody eventually will have troubles and problems. We certainly did in our 40 years here. There were people that came up and helped us through that, and every family, I think, that has ever been in this community, when they've had problems, there have been people that have stepped up to help them. But more importantly than that, even, I think, is the flip side of that coin, that the people that need help, we, all of us, were there to help them too. I'm going to tell just one story about this, and then I'm going to go on to my closing remarks. Mr. Byrne was a Holocaust survivor, and he lost his entire family in the Holocaust. It was one of the most heart-wrenching things that I have ever experienced, listening to Mr. Byrne say Kaddish over and over and over again. And yet, the man remained righteous, he remained a true Jew. And he was not a rich man, but he managed to find the funds to buy a Torah to give to the community. When his wife died, he lost all of his family. After the war, he married another Holocaust survivor who had lost her family. But when she died, he started to fail. And the community stepped up, and we came and we brought food to him. And we took him to doctor's appointments, and we made it so that he could stay in his home and not have to be moved to a nursery home. I want to just make one little aside here and mention the Kohanta family, because in Mr. Byrne's time, the Kohantams, and I'm not talking Eliyahu, Moshe, and his brother Moshe and his brother Yehuda, I think we're all involved in this, but they were all involved in so many aspects of the shul. But they brought food. They were some of the key families that were involved in this process. There were many, many other families as well. So that's what a community like this is all about. But I'm going to approach it from a little different perspective. It's really nice that we step up and we help our own. We help each other out. But I think that what a lot of people don't understand is that we really help ourselves out when we step up and help others out. In the Shema, it says, "You will love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your resources." So what does that mean? With all your resources is pretty easy. That's your money. You give tzedakah. Tzedakah is ancient Chinese tradition. It should be, because it's a biblical injunction. Hashem tells us you have to do it. So it should be. But what about the first part of it? You must love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul. The part about saying, all your resources, that happens twice a day, every day. But it's repeated The part that says you will love Hashem your God with all your heart and with all your soul, we say that 4 times a day, every day. Weekdays, Shabbos, Yom Tovim, Yom Kippur, it doesn't matter. We say it 4 times a day. That's a very important biblical injunction. But how do you do that? How do you love God? Now, I don't want any show of hands here, but I want each of you to just think about this for a minute. Do you really, have you built a relationship with God where you really feel that you love God? If you have, good for you. Talk to me later. But if you haven't, then I think I have a theory about this. And my theory is that the way that you learn to love God is by loving life, especially loving human beings. And to love human beings, it's not that you speak about it, it's that you do something. So this community gives us a venue that enables us to do something. And that something is loving our fellow human beings, and I think it can lead directly to loving God. So I am very, very thankful to this community, and my prayer is that all of you will learn to give, and that you will benefit by it immensely by establishing a personal relationship with God and loving God. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Don't believe everything that Jim says. I wrote this down because I do want to talk. I guess there's stuff I want to say. I'm going to be quick because we're running a little behind schedule. Normally I try to ad-lib stuff, but I did write down because I wanted to have clear thoughts about a couple of things. And actually there's a couple of slides as well. This is 5 minutes, maybe 7 minutes tops. So don't get anxious. So you probably know this is actually the highlight of the programming tonight. This is really the best part. Jim is very entertaining and gets us verklempt, and he says a lot of truths, actually, some truths. And the movie was great. Sam Adler, by the way, did the movie. Sam's not here anymore. He left about a week ago, and we all missed him immensely, but really he put a lot of time into it, so we can give her up for Sam Adler, so the Adlers, and Sam especially. So it's funny, when the rabbi sent out the timeline for this, it said 7:45, Jonathan Kay, appeal. And I'm thinking, this isn't going to appeal to anyone, except maybe me. It appeals to me, but everyone else it probably doesn't appeal to. But, I want to, in order for me to appeal for you, I want to share a little history. And it's not funny history, it's serious history. But it's really germane to stuff about the community that people don't know about. I only say this for the people that do know about it, who were involved, many of whom are no longer with us, but it needs to be said for their sake. So I want to put this is in the journal. I want to put this up there though, because people don't understand that in 1996, 97, the Shul was in a lot of debt. There was a rabbi here had 6 kids, and he relied on his parnasa from the Shul exclusively. And there was a mortgage that the Shul owned on his house, and there was a mortgage on the Shul, and there was a second loan on the Shul. And we owed $500,000, and we couldn't pay our bills, and it was a very stressful time. And over the course of 1996 and 1997, we paid it down to the first mortgage. We owed $200,000 on the Shul, but we'd really exhausted every source of funds. And I was here, I was president for part of the time we were trying to pay it off, certainly. And we were young, much younger than I am now, and everyone else was younger, or there were retirees, the community was smaller. And back in these days, $150,000 you could buy a home in San Jose. So $200,000 is an enormous amount of money. So this went down in 1998. These people paid off the mortgage. But I just want to say over the story briefly, because I want to try and impart some sense of what it was at that time, and the fact that we almost didn't make it. The shul came like really close to closing. I mean, like really, really, really close, and it was very stressful. Everyone felt this achrayus, this responsibility not to let that happen, but it came very, very close. And I pulled some stuff. This was actually the mortgage that we had on the second mortgage on the shul that we paid off in 1997, and this was. Sorry, I've got it wrong. This was the second mortgage, that's right. This was the mortgage on the rabbi's house that we eventually, with some Jewish accounting, we managed to finagle how to pay that off. And then in 1997, October 1997, we were in foreclosure. And that foreclosure process, imagine you show up for Million 3 times a day, and there would be notices pinned to the door. And it was a countdown. It was literally a countdown. We had 90 days before the property was going to be sold at auction. And we would come to the shul, and the pressure would mount. And this is, I don't know why I kept them at the time. This is when I just scanned this last night because I was looking at them and it kind of flooded back to me what it was at the time. This was like the 90-day notice of default. And this is the letter that came with it. And then this is the one when we had 60 days left, 30 days of foreclosure, then it was going up for auction. So this is in December 1997. We had to find $200,000, and we couldn't find it. No one would give the money. People were spent. They'd paid everything they could. And so then this amazing thing happened. This is like the spreadsheet. I'm a digital guy, so I have everything, right? So if you want anonymity, don't send me anything because I have it all. This is from January the 21st, 1998. This is the people that gave, and they gave through loans. They sold stuff. I'm not joking. People cashed in retirements. They took out personal loans. People really dug deep, much deeper than their comfort zone. And we raised $150,072. But we still had $50,904 left to go. And we had literally a few days left before the shul was going to be sold. And imagine this is shul, the Sefer Torah there, we daven there, we couldn't live here without a shul, but it was going to be sold off. And then Robert and Joel Safran stood up. So they should stand up now. Stand up, Safrans, please. Please stand up. I really insist, stand up, I want you to. Come on.
They would not be standing here today if they hadn't stood up then. Because they took out a loan, a personal loan,
for $50,904. That's what they did. They took out a loan. They're not rich people. They're rich in a lot of other ways. When it comes to cash, they're not rich. But they took out a loan on their home, and they paid off the shul. They paid off the shul, and we didn't foreclose. So this isn't a show. When you see this, it's in the cloakroom, and you might look at this and think, who's Morris and Selma Safran? That's Robert Safran's parents, and they taught him and Joel, obviously, about the merit of giving. So next time you see this in the show, please, maybe people can stop and think, this is the people that stopped the shul from being foreclosed on. So thank you, Robert and Joel Safran. I want to tell you one more thing. It was the 2nd of February, 1998. It was the last day. It was the very last day before the show was going to be sold. Myself and Andy drove to the mortgage company, and we were going to negotiate. We were going to try and get new terms, see if we could reduce the balance somehow. And it was raining. It was a wet, wet day. It was torrents of rain. I remember that. It was like surreal. It was like a movie. The weather was coming down, and we had to run from the car into the bank, and we were all soaked. And we said, please, can we renegotiate this loan? Because we didn't want to take money off people. And they wouldn't do it. They said, no, the building is now ours. It's ours, you haven't paid. And so we pulled out the checkbook, and we could write this check for $201,000, $270.81. And since that day, on February the 2nd, 1998, Baruch Hashem, Echad has been mortgage free. So again, one day maybe we'll do a plaque in the Shul or something, but these are people that really gave for that event in addition to the saffron. So again, when you look at the journal and you see these names, please, everyone can keep that in mind. So thank you for letting me share that story. So I want to talk briefly about the next 50 years, then we're done. So I had like the next 50 years, we've got to decide who's going to fill the Shul for the next 50 years. That's like the gaping question. So this is the Shul. We took this picture when it was empty. Honestly, it's empty. The Shul is empty when this picture was taken. And this is the sanctuary when it's empty. This is what it looks like when no one's there. And this is the social hall when it's empty. And for the next 50 years, we have to fill the Shul. You know, when I think about all the events that have happened here, I got married in the Shul, myself and Leah, I had a couple here. And there's been how many bar mitzvahs, barisim, how many events, how many times we've davened there. You can do the math, probably 40, 50,000 times since you went to history. Probably hundreds of thousands of times people have said Kaddish in the Shul. And it boggles the mind. But you know, it's going to be empty unless we fill it. So the question is, who's going to fill it for the next 50 years? And so I want to show you who's going to fill the Shul for the next 50 years. So give me a second here, then we really are almost done. So I'd like to introduce you to the people which are going to fill the Shul for the next 50 years. I want to thank my daughter, Dasa, where is she? She did this. She secretly took pictures. Okay. All right. So, what's the point of all this? The point is that the people here in this room are the ones that are going to fill the Shul for the next 50 years. And even if you're moving away, the Levine's not going to be here, but they fill the Shul every day, and they're going to keep on filling it every day. All the shamas that they've made, they're going to continue to fill the Shul as well. And we're going to see their parents back here frequently, as myself and Jack were talking about that. So we have an appeal, and this is our Jubilee fundraiser. And we know that people paid for the dinner, and they put ads in the journal, and we know there's always asking. But one thing that Echad has taught everyone that's been here is that we always underestimate our capacity to give. And the Shul is everything. It's our whole lives. We can't be here without a Shul. There's nowhere for us in San Jose, and for thousands of other people who rely on the Shul. So we have three general areas of fundraiser. There's general expenses. We do actually pay our electricity bill, and the security is a big thing. It costs us a lot now, but it's unfortunately necessary. And we're doing stuff in the building. We want to. Things are slow. I know we say this, but we're working on it. There's plans, very concrete plans for a new mechitza. There's a typo here. We want to put windows in the Shul, just beautify it. Talking to many about it and others about how we'll do that. We're going to build a fence. We need to build a security fence around the Shul. We're going to change the entrance so that the kids can play outside and we're not freaking out that it's so open. So the things that need to be done, and it all costs money. And so this is the time in the Jubilee dinner where we really ask that people be part of the next 50 years, and that they take the cards which are on the tables and they give as generously as they can, and you can earmark for any of these areas, and we do our best to make sure that it gets allocated properly. But please give as generously as you can, because all the beautiful things that we hear about the past, all of us are the future, and in order for these stories to be said about us, it requires us to all give of ourselves financially, as well as obviously by being daily supporters of the Shul. So thank you very much. I appreciate you letting me talk to you, and I think there's going to be a few minute break, and then Rabbi Levine. Okay, I'm introducing you. Okay. Thank you. So please take the cards and fill them out. There's pens on the table. Please give as generous as you can. We'll collect them. The board member Howard, myself, will collect them. So thank you very, very much. Okay, it's my privilege and my honor to introduce the next speaker, to have like two great Gedolim, really, they are in my mind, in the room at the same time. To have our guest speaker, Rabbi Leff, and then to have Rav Levine here, it's an amazing thing. It doesn't surprise me that they have a close relationship, because they're two great men cut from the same cloth. And everyone in this room has gotten to love the Levines deeply on a personal level and a community level. And we don't talk. We're all in denial about what's going to be in the summer. But right now it's not the summer. We have several more months, and it's a great honor for me to introduce our Rav Menachem Levine.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan, for the kind words. And good evening, Am Echad. So, in this coming week's Parsha Yisro, there's an amazing pasuk, there's an amazing verse, where Yisro, Moshe's father-in-law, is reunited with Moshe, and he says the following thing to Moshe. Vayomer Yisro, Baruch Hashem, Asher hitzla eschem mi'ad Mitzrayim, u'mi'ad Paro, Asher hitzla sa'am mitachas yad Mitzrayim. Thank God, Baruch Hashem, that you, Moshe, the Jewish people, were saved from Mitzrayim, from Paro. That God saved you. Baruch Hashem, thank God. The Medrash, the Mechilta, which is echoed in a Gemara in Sanhedrin, says the following thing: B'gnusan shel Yisrael hakasav medaber. It was actually a point of contention against the Jewish people. Shamiyom sheyatzu Yisrael miMitzrayim, from the day the Jewish people left Egypt, lo amad echad mehem, not one of them said Baruch Hashem, Ad sheba Yisro v'amro, until Yisro came and said it. And Rav Schwab, our dear president, gives a shir of Schwab every Shabbos morning. Rav Schwab says the following thing: V'yesh lahavin ma hayachaser lahem. What were the Jewish people lacking? B'ma shelo amru b'lashon Baruch Hashem dafka. Why did they not say Baruch Hashem? Why was it that Yisro said Baruch Hashem when the Jewish people did not? And in fact, says Rav Schwab, Ari Amru Shira, Mufu'ara Al-Yam, they said Oz Yashir. They sang a Shira. V'yesh lo yamar, and perhaps that a Shira is Shayaches L'Rabim. A Shira, a song, like they sang at the Red Sea, is for the masses. But to say Baruch Hashem, That's for Yechidim, that's for individuals. He says, for example, in Tefillah we say Baruch Hu, as Hashem, and then every Yachid says Baruch. There's a difference between a collective thanking of God and an individual thanking of Hashem. And Rav Schwab then asks the following question: why was it that the Jewish people did not say an individual thank you to Hashem? And he gives two explanations, two answers. The first answer that Rav Schwab said is that the Jewish people, they were so close. They had this idea of Ki Ish Echad V'Leiv Echad, that they're one people, and they thought that the way to serve Hashem is if we do it as a nation, as one people. That's Genog. That's enough. And what Yisro realized, and what the criticism of the Jewish people was, is that that's not enough. Even if a nation or a shul or a community thanks Hashem as a community, it's still obligatory for individuals to thank Hashem for the gifts they get personally. So while the shul's as a kehillah, as a community thanking Hashem tonight, on a personal note, I like to makar tov on behalf of Rebbetzin and myself that we've had the tremendous opportunity, schos, anybody who would walk into the room tonight, from the opening video to hearing Chaim talk about some of the history and the present of the shul, to Jonathan reminding us all of the miracles of this shul. It has been and is a privilege. And I thank Hashem daily that I have had the schus to be the Rav of Am Echad, a kehillah of amazing individuals, growth-oriented people who are mishpacha, who are family to us all. And the truth be told, to say it on the Yovel, on the Jubilee, is even more meaningful. There was a very, very famous Rav of his time, although most people here probably never heard of him. His name was Rav Yehuda Leib Tzirlson. He was the Rav of Kishinev. He was a Gadol b'Torah. He was one of the most famous speakers of Europe in the early 20th century. He was actually an early Zionist. He was a member of the first Knesset for the Zionists, a founding member of Mizrahi, but then got turned off by the secular aspect of it and became a founding member of Agudas Yisrael. He was a person who became a member of the Romanian Parliament. He was a Rav in Kishinev. So Kishinev, for those who know history, was Bessarabia. At one point, it was under Russia. Then after World War I, it was in Romania. And today, anyone know? Who said that? Moldova, you're right, David. Today it's in Moldova. And Rav Tzirlson has his recollections and his drushas. There's a few svarim that they put out in a sefer called Lev Yehuda. And one of these drushas was for the 50th anniversary, the Yovel of the yeshiva in Kishinev. And he's asked the following thing. He says, what is it about an anniversary? What's the point of celebrating, of noting, of recognizing an anniversary? And he said, recently, in Kishinev, this was, I believe it was in 1908, we celebrated the 50th anniversary of the hospital. And we also celebrated the 50th anniversary of a Gamach. We had a free loan fund, which in Europe, in the early 20th century, was life and death for many. And this Rabbi Yehuda Leib Tzirlson said the following thing. If you have a hospital that makes it to 50 years, then you can say, that's a celebration. You know why? That hospital may never make it. We may not serve the patients okay. The staff may not work out. He mentions about the anti-Semitism, this is when it was under Russia, of the Russian government. Then when we got to 50 for the hospital, It was a moment of celebration. And he says the Zel Bazach, the same thing. When it came the 50th year of the Gemach, of the Free Loan Fund, maybe we'd run out of funds, maybe people wouldn't pay back, maybe we wouldn't have enough money. And he said it's the endurance, the persistence of those reaching 50 years, even 10 years he writes, or 20 years, that would be something to recognize, to note. But he said a yeshiva's Hashem's Torah. Of course it would last. Did we have any doubt it would last? And Silson then said he writes, I read he said, but you know what it really is when you get Yovel? It's a time to thank Hashem for the gift of Hashem's Torah. And that if we've had a yeshiva for 50 years in our midst, thank you Hashem, he said. That's what that's about. And I believe tonight, when we're all thanking Hashem, as the Kehillah and really as individuals, it's really both, to tell you the truth. Number one is to thank Hashem that we have Am Echad, that we have a Shul today that does not miss a minyan, ever. There's at least 3 minions. Sometimes there's more than 3 minions in the Shul every day. There are 2 daf yomis. There's nightly shears. If you come Shabbos afternoon, there are 3 shears going on, multiple chavrusas. There is an eruv, there is a mikvah, there's a kela mikvah, there's a shul of chesed, where people can walk in, and if they're not set up before Shabbos, they'll be set up on Shabbos. We can take the moment tonight to say Baruch Hashem, that we have such a shul Tiferes. And I say this not lightly, the Makom Torah of the Bay Area. The Makom Torah. There is no place like Am Echad where there's as much Torah, where there's minions every day of the year, no matter what. Early and late minion in the summer. We have Talmidei Chachamim in the Shul. That's a Baruch Hashem. But it's also a night tonight, and I think anyone who's heard or seen a little bit of the history, where we thank Hashem for the persistence and the endurance to get here tonight. Because there were very hard days. Jonathan mentioned perhaps one of the greatest, if not the greatest, moments of truth. But there were days when the Shul in the 1970s went from house to house in the early 70s without a home to even sell or to buy. They almost lost the Shul in the early 1970s. There were days where people didn't want to start a Shul. Because I know for a fact, I was told by people, part of my history research, that in the mid-1960s, there were individuals who tried to start a Shul, an Orthodox Shul, in San Jose, several years before Am Echad. But it was the persistence of the people in the past and the people today. Each one of you in the room who contributes your time, your money, your energy, your love. And that's something to celebrate tonight and to thank Hashem for. Rav Schwab then says a second reason why the Jewish people did not thank Hashem and Yisro did. He said that, the typical thing where a person says thank you Hashem is when the job is done. When they're fully healed from their sickness, they thank Hashem. When they finish the deal, they thank Hashem. When they buy something, when they accomplish something, the thank you comes at the end of the journey. And for Yisro, he thought the Jewish people had finished their journey when they left Mitzrayim, when they left Egypt. But the Jewish people, they knew that the journey was not over. They still had to go to get to Har Sinai, to Matan Torah. The criticism was that even though the journey was not over, you're supposed to thank Hashem at every moment, at every milestone, at every moment that you can come to thank Hashem, That's what you should do. And although we're planning the next 50 years, bigger and better, tonight it's only appropriate to thank Hashem for those who have helped the Shul get here. There's so many lists of people to get to, so I just want to pick people who are in the room, and a few people, because the truth is, all of you, really, I can honestly go through every table and every individual, that you are all major stockholders in Am Echad, people who have built the Shul. And I've said this many times, and I think about it. I was thinking about it tonight. All of the tefillah, all of the chesed, all of the Torah for the past 50 years, you and everyone who came before has a part in. Every Shachris, Mincha, and Mariv, the people who give to the Shul, they have a chelik. But I want to point out a few people who are here today. Actually, the first are not even in the room, but I will tell you, Dr. Joe and his ex-wife Sheila Soderberg, they follow the Shul. The Shul started in their home, and he told me the stories of how that actually occurred. He put in a 2-page ad, which he insisted in paying for tonight, and he wanted to come, Dr. Sonnenberg. In fact, I'll be honest, I asked him to be the honoree. If there's anyone, honoree is to be him. And he wanted to come, and he was not here tonight, but I can tell you who will watch the video. He reads the email every week. He emails me, and he's still a donor to the Shul, even though he left the community almost 40 years ago. That is the beginning of Am Echad. And that's why we're still here today. It's people like that, like Dr. Joe and Sheila Sonnenberg. As noted, Mrs. Bergman was also a founder. Is she in the Shul tonight? She's still here. Mrs. Bergman who is a founder and heavily involved, as Jim Roberts pointed out, for the first 20 years. She was for the biggest, if not the biggest, doer of the Shul. And in fact, since I've been here, she's been still doing for the mikvah. People don't even appreciate, they take it for granted, that the mikvah almost needs no mikvah ladies, because Mrs. Bergman personally, nightly, undertakes to do the mikvah. So thank you, Mrs. Bergman. I'm picking only a few people who are here, but I wanted to note that Chaim Gallant, Charlie Gallant, is in the crowd. And Chaim came back this year, but he had the first bar mitzvah in the Shul, as noted. And the Shul was not only the first bar mitzvah, that bar mitzvah at that period of time, the Sonnenbergs could not host the Shul. And it was in his own grandparents' house that the Shul was at that point in. And you think to yourself, Chaim, after almost 50 years, comes back to the Shul. I have no doubt that's because his own grandparents hosted the Shul. It's really, and this year it became Shomer Shabbos in kosher and really contributed to the Shul. That's because of Am Echad's grandparents, who in a critical period of time when the Shul had no home, nowhere to daven. We wouldn't be here tonight. His grandparents brought him into the Shul and had his bar mitzvah and hosted the Shul. So thank you on behalf of your grandparents, Chaim Gallant. I'll tell you the truth. I love pressure and stress. Only person who will probably need stress more than me is Mehdi, because Mehdi lives on stress and Chaim. But I'm happy that I was not here in 1997 and 1998. When you hear the stories of what went on there, and Jonathan just did a drop of it, and the individuals who saved the Shul, it's 22 years later, and all of the tefillos in that Shul, all of the prayers, the 2 daf yomis, the shiurim, the chesed, every day, the words of encouragement, the people who became religious, the Sephardic minyan on Yom Kippur. That's all because of people in 1998 who were meiser nefesh, mamish, literally b'chol ma'adecha, gave up all of the money. Bob and Joel Safran came special tonight So I want to thank them. We should thank them again for their coming tonight and for what they've done for Am Echad. There are a lot of people in the room who my heart, the love that I have for everyone here is boundless. And I say that sincerely and understating the love I have for everyone here. But I want to just call out 4 people who really, I stayed in the Shul, I have to give them the credit. And the fact that the Shul in our years tripled, went from less than 30 to 90 families, it was really due to these individuals who, being on a board, is the most thankless job. Because I'm on a few boards, not only am I a Rav, I'm on boards of preschools and Erevs, I was on the day school board, I'm on the Chevra Kadisha. It is a thankless job. You get complaints, you get aggravation, and you're expected to give your time, energy, and money. And the fact is that these 4 individuals have been board members since I've been here. That's Dr. Andy Harmon as president. Reb Yaakov K., Jonathan K., as vice president. David Raka as treasurer. And double duty for Yitzchak, for Kevin Fagan, who has been facilities in the Gabbai for the past 13 years. Baruch Hashem for all of the individuals who I just mentioned, because we're here tonight because of them. I also want to take the time to say thank you to the people who helped put this dinner together. Our beloved Director of Development, our admin, Howard Klein, whose wife, Esther Rachel, who is also very involved. She's been a board member for 10 years as well. To Shmuel Adler, who exemplifies the essence of Am Echad as he's packing up to make this movie that was shown tonight. You're also going to... And I'm very, very makbid to say men before women, even everything, everyone knows that. But to Chani and many parents of Yes Catering for once again, unbelievable heart and soul that they have put into the show. And as we say Baruch Hashem tonight, and we thank Hashem as individuals and as a Kehillah, we have to remember that we're not done with our journey. We're just pausing on the way, on the future journey, as we say Baruch Hashem. So tonight, we can say Baruch Hashem as we rejoice in our past and enjoy our present. But the biggest Baruch Hashem will be the future, the great future of Am Echad in the future. So may Am Echad continue to go mechayil l'chayil and to even greater heights. Thank you and mazel tov. At this time, when taking the opportunity to say Baruch Hashem, thank you Hashem, I was thinking, who would understand the value of a shul, the gift of a shul to build a community, to transform individuals and a community. And I was looking at the list of potential scholar in residence and speakers, and I thought of no one better than Rav Zev Leff Shlita, a Rav of a shul in South Florida, a Rav in Eretz Yisrael, a person who has touched the lives of countless individuals as he built communities. It is my distinct honor and privilege to ask Rav Zev Leff Shlita to address us now.
Thank you, Rabbi Levine. To tell you the truth, I don't know what I can add to all the beautiful things that were said tonight. I am, however, flattered and honored to have been the only person to have been invited twice here. Perhaps it's because I was the Rav of Rabbi Levine when he was a year and a half, and his very, very fine parents. But I'm a little bit apprehensive that maybe there's another reason why they invited me here a second time. They tell the story of a chazan who gave a presentation, and when he finished his last number, they asked for an encore. So he sang it a second time. When he finished it the second time, they asked for a third encore. After 7 encores, he said, "I'm really flattered that you want to hear this song over and over, but how many times?" And somebody in the back yelled out, "Till you do it right." I hope this time I'll do it right and you won't have to invite me back another time. A little nostalgia. I feel a connection to this community of San Jose because when I was in high school in Miami, we had a Spanish class. In those days, Spanish was an accepted second language in Miami. I understand today the accepted second language is English. And our Spanish teacher said that to really feel the feeling of a Spanish class, everybody has to assume a Spanish name. And my name at the time was Zev, and in English it was Billy, and somehow I got called Jose. So it brings back very fond memories to be here in San Jose. The importance of community, of a tzibur. Hillel said, "Al tifrosh min hatzibur." Don't separate yourself from the community. Klal Yisrael is a community. You can't separate yourself from the Klal. The Rambam says that someone who is a perfect tzaddik, does no sins, only does mitzvahs, but he separates himself from the Jewish people, doesn't rejoice when they rejoice, doesn't mourn when they mourn, has no share in the world to come. Kol Yisrael yesh lehem chelik l'olam haba. It's only the Jewish people as a whole that have a share in the world to come, and each and every one of us have a part of that because we are card-carrying members of the Jewish people. A tzibur is tzaddik, beinoni, virasha. Tzibur is comprised of many, many different kinds of people. Righteous people and mediocre people, and even people who have a lot to be desired. But as long as that vav connects them to the others, even the virasha is part of that tzibur. You know, on Sukkot, we take the 4 types that the Torah commanded us, the esrog, the lulav, the aravos, the hadassim. The esrog represents the tzaddik, the heart of the Jewish people, the righteous ones. The hadassim and lulav represent the people who are somewhere in the middle. And the arava, which has no taste and no aroma, represents the perhaps negative people in Klal Yisrael. But as long as they're all connected together, we serve God with all of them. It's only when the arava, the willow, is separated from the others that on Hoshana Rabbah we beat it to the ground. But as long as it's connected to all the others, they're connected together, then all of them are part of that conglomerate that is the Jewish people. And that Tzibur, this community, is represented in three different facets. It says by the Korban Pesach, by the Passover offering, that it's brought by Kahal Adas Yisrael. And many times in the Torah, we find these three designations: Kahal Adas Yisrael. What do they mean? What are these facets of community? Kahal literally means a congregation. Congregation, if you ever thought about it, means people congregate together in one place and do things together as one united being. And that means that there is strength in numbers. There is no comparison to a person who prays alone and someone who has tefillah b'tzibur, where the prayer is a communal prayer together. Things that you can't say alone, you can say only with a minyan. Kaddish, you can't say alone, you can only say it when there's a minyan there. There's no comparison between somebody who sits in his home and learns Torah and somebody who comes to a communal shiur and sits and learns Torah. Torah D'Rabim is something completely different than Torah Sayochid, than the Torah of an individual. And in those areas between man and man, the idea of a kehillah, of people functioning together, caring about each other, gemilus chasadim, doing chesed, as we've heard, tremendous chesed that this community does, enjoying each and other's simchas and mourning each and other's tragedies, visiting the sick. All of this is part of what a kehillah, a kahal, a congregation is. People functioning together in a united fashion. And in a kehillah, when people congregate together, so they're good neighbors and they're good friends, and there's a very big difference between the two. A good neighbor is there. He doesn't necessarily invade the other person's privacy, but people know that he's there when he's necessary to be called on. And a good friend, a chaver, is somebody that connects to other people. Not always is it necessary to connect into someone else. People have to have their own space. But many times a person has to have a good friend, and many times he doesn't need that friend, but he needs a good neighbor. He needs somebody who is ready when necessary to be called upon. That is the concept of a kahal, of a congregation. And then there is an Eidah, Adas Yisrael. An Eidah is comprised not necessarily of people who are congregated together. An Eidah is a community. The word community, I think, means where people have something in common that unifies them, a common unity. That is a community. People can be scattered all over the world, but they have the same values and the same standards and the same goals. And that's what creates an Eidah. They all testify to the same values and standards and goals. Or perhaps there's another idea. The word Ada, I think, has a connection to the word Ya'ad. If you come to Israel and you look at the board in the airport, so where it says in English destination, in Hebrew it says Ya'ad. An Ada is comprised of people who have the same destination. They're all reaching towards the same goal, towards the same values and standards. They are a faith community. And here, in addition to having a congregation where people do things together, but even when you're not together, you're not congregated in the same place, each in their own home, but you have a family, a faith community where you have similar goals and values and standards. And the community here in that respect is like a family with Jewish pride. Pride to be part of the Jewish people, to be part of the people who have those goals and standards and values. People who are sensitive to the plight of other Jews, not only in your own community, but beyond the borders of this community worldwide. That is the family of Klal Yisrael, and you are part of that family too. That is the concept of an Ada, of a faith community. And then there is Yisrael. What's left? You have a community where people congregate together, and even when they're not congregated, they have similar goals and values. What's left? The Zohar HaKodesh says that Yisrael is an acronym. If you take the first letters, the letters of Yisrael, they spell the following words: Yesh Shishim Ribui Osios LaTorah. There are 600,000 letters to the Torah. The simple idea is that just like there are 600,000 root souls of the Jewish people, there are 600,000 letters in the Torah, and every Jew has their letter. Very beautiful idea. Each and every one of us has a letter in the 600,000 letters of the Torah. There's only one problem. There are not 600,000 letters in the Torah. She'll tell me, okay, plus or minus one or two, doesn't make that much of a difference. How many letters are in the Torah? 304,855. That is about half of 600,000. So what does it mean? I know about 11 answers to that question. I'm not going to tell you any of them, because I don't think there's any question. The question would only be if it said, Yesh Shishim Ribi Osios BaTorah. There are 600,000 letters in the Torah. It doesn't say that. Because if it said that, it wouldn't spell Yisrael. It would spell Yisroab. In order to spell Yisrael, it has to read Yesh Shishim Ribi Osios La Torah, which I think means the following. There's another Zohar that you're familiar with for sure from a song. Yisrael, the Oraisa, the Kudsha Brichu Chadhu. The Jewish people and the Torah and the Rabbanu Shalom are all one. That means that the Torah of 304,000 letters is not complete unless you connect it on one side to God and you connect it on the other side to the Jewish people. It's an incomplete Torah. Yesh Shishim Ribui Osios La Torah. You have to add another 600,000 letters to the written Torah for the Torah to be complete. And those 600,000 letters are the root souls of the Jewish people. It's only when you have those 600,000 letters that are the root souls of the Jewish people that the Torah is a complete Torah. And just like in the written Torah, each letter is unique. It has its place. It has its form. No two letters are the same. The beis in the word Bereshis is not the same as the beis in the word bara. The word Bereshis has nothing before it and a whole Torah after it. And the beis in bara has a word before it and words after it. And so too with every letter in the Torah is unique. The first two aspects of community, of tzibur, is conformity, where everybody pretty much does the same things at the same time in the same place. But this third aspect of the tzibur, of the kahal, Yisrael, is individuality, where everybody is unique. Everybody has their unique letter, their unique contribution to that tzibur. And that is what makes perfection. Only God is perfect. Every single thing other in this world is imperfect and needs many things to work together to reach perfection. And that's what shalom means. Shalom doesn't mean peace. Shalom means shleimus, perfection. How is perfection rate? On the physical level, the Sforno points out that every day God created various things, and he then looked and saw that what he created was good. Vayar Elokim ki tov. God saw it was good. On Friday, when God finished creation, it says, Vayar Elokim es kol asher asa v'hinei tov ma'od. God saw everything that he created, and it was very good. The Sforno asks, what transformed all these many good things to be very good? Why is it now very good? We just have a collection of a lot of good things. What he says is the following. I'll give you an example to what he says. Take an automobile and disassemble it into all of its parts. Where I live, they do this often. So now you have automobile parts strewn over your lawn. Each part has a function. You can use the horn as a musical instrument. You can use the gas tank to store liquids. You can use the tires to be afloat at the beach, and so on. Each one is good. It has a good function. But when you put them all together and they form a functioning automobile, that's very good. The automobile is better than the sum of its parts. That's shalom. That's shleimus. Perfection is when many different things work together, each one contributing its unique portion, its unique identity towards the perfection of the whole. And that applies also to the world of society. If everyone in this world would be doctors, we'd have a very healthy world. But who would take out the garbage? And if everyone were garbage men, we'd have a very clean world. Who would heal the sick? So you need all the various professions. You need professionals, and you need businessmen, and you need workers, and everyone working and contributing their unique part. And that's how there is a more perfect society. And it works in the spiritual world too. We pride ourselves that we received the Torah with 613 commandments. There is no one who could ever fulfill 613 commandments. Not because it's too hard, because it's impossible. Because there are certain commandments that only apply to Kohanim. If you're not a Kohen, forget it. You don't have 613 commandments. So what do you tell me? Kohanim have 613 commandments. No, it's not true. There are certain mitzvahs that are only for non-Kohanim. A Kohen will never fulfill the mitzvah of redeeming his firstborn son because he's not required to do that. It's not a mitzvah that applies to him. There are certain mitzvahs that are only for men. Physically, no woman could ever perform those mitzvahs. But there are mitzvahs that are only for women. At least in my lifetime, I'm hoping no man will ever bring the sacrifice after childbirth. So, who has 613 mitzvahs? Unless you are a Kohen, Levi, Yisrael, man and woman wrapped into one, which today may be possible, but under normal circumstances was not. There's no one who has 613 mitzvahs. So how do we have 613 mitzvahs? Because we didn't receive the Torah as individuals. We received the Torah as a conglomerate called Klal Yisrael. And each member of Klal Yisrael has their specific individual mitzvahs that they can contribute towards those 613 mitzvahs of the Jewish people, Ke'ish Echad v'Lev Echad, like one person with one heart. That is the idea of Yisrael. And because there are three aspects to community, the congregation, the community, and Yisrael, you need a leader who's able to deal with all these three aspects. Korach made a big mistake, and he only understood two of those aspects. And he said, Kol ha'eda kulam kedoshim. If we're looking at the aspect of the Eda, people who have common goals and principles and values and destinations, then you need a Kohen to teach, to sanctify, to elevate the people towards those values and goals. And therefore Korach said, Kol ha'eda kulam kedoshim. We're all holy. We don't need anyone to teach us and elevate us. The Eda is a perfect Eda. And Uvesochem Hashem, we don't need a leader to unite us, to be a congregation, because God is the unifying force amongst us in the desert. So what do we need you, Moshe and Aaron, the Melech and the Kohen, Gadol? What do we need you to lead us? But Korach forgot that there's a third aspect to the congregation, to the community, and that is Yisrael. That each and every Jew is unique, and each and every Jew is an individual. And even if they all are perfect, imagine a symphony orchestra. Every single one knows exactly how to play their instrument in the best possible way. They don't need anyone to teach them how to play their instrument. And they don't need anyone to unite them. They all work for the same symphony orchestra. They're there because that's their job. They still need a maestro. They still need a conductor. Why? To synchronize them. To make sure that each one contributes his part at the right time in the right way. That is the third aspect of a leader. A leader is someone who, yes, unites everyone into one congregation, who teaches them and gives them, elevates them and educates them. But a leader also has to be able to synchronize all of the contributions of each individual so they all work together towards perfection. And therefore, a Jewish leader is called a shamash. Simple meaning, he's a servant of the community. That was what the Levium were told. Ashreichem shenismanu shamoshim lamokom. So the Levi is supposed to be a servant, but I think it has another meaning. Shamish is a shemesh. It's a sun, S-U-N. And the Levi has to be a sun. What is the function of the sun? The sun gives life, it gives heat, it is also the source of photosynthesis, of growth, and the sun is a model to be able to calculate your times, what you do, when you do it, what season it is, and so on. That's a Jewish leader. A Jewish leader has to enlighten like the sun gives light. He has to teach Torah, teach midos tovos. A leader has to be someone who gives warmth, who makes people feel good, who makes people feel energized, wanted, needed. A leader has to see to it that the people he's involved with grow, and he gives them the incentive and the wherewithal to grow like the sun. And he also is a model to look up to, a personal model to look up to, that people should be able to know how to function and when to function properly by looking at him. You're lucky to have such a Levi who's your leader. Tell you the truth, one of the reasons I didn't want to come here a second time is because last time I was here, I felt so guilty looking at Rabbi Levine and seeing what a real rabbi should be, and I looked at myself and I said, what are you? Look at this person. Look what he accomplishes. Look how he deals with his kehillah. I'm so happy my kehillah is not here to see what he looks like. Here is the ultimate shemesh. I don't know where he gets all the koach. He has the ability to deal with so many different people. I've been here for 2 days. I've spoken 9 times to 9 different siburim. None of them the same as any of them. And that's only a little bit for 2 days. Okay, I got to leave. But he's been here constantly, day and night, and involved with all these different aspects of the community in such a positive and such a perfect way as you've seen tonight. I don't want to make you feel bad, because I know that he's leaving. But it gives you a tremendous responsibility to make sure that the person that succeeds him is going to be able to somewhat fill his shoes and be the type of leader and the type of Rav that's going to be able to deal with all the aspects of the Kehillah, the Kahal, the Eidah, the Yisrael, as well as he did. I'm not going to have an easy time finding somebody like that. But at least you know what is necessary, and therefore you'll make it your business to find someone who at least follows in that tradition. The purpose of a dinner, especially a Yovel dinner, 50th anniversary, is to reminisce of the past and celebrate in the present and contemplate how to take all of that and project it into the future. I wish you all tremendous success. This community should grow and thrive, and you won't have to invite me here a third time. I'll tell you why. Because Mashiach is going to come very soon, and this entire congregation is going to be moved to Eretz Yisrael. And your shul, which you don't have to pay mortgage on anymore, is going to also go with you. All the Batei Knesios and Batei Midrashos in Chutz La'aretz will be transported to Eretz Yisrael. And we have some empty land right near Moshav Matityahu, which will fit your shul very nicely. You can build homes. We're not going to build them for you. You can build homes there. Mashiach Tzidkeinu will definitely help you resettle in Eretz Yisrael. And then you can invite me not to come 16 hours on a plane, but to walk over to the Am Echad Kehillah in Eretz Yisrael, B'mheirav Yomeinu.